Hello, everyone.
I guess.
Hi. I'll put a link to the meeting notes and agenda here. If you have topics, please add that. And also, like while we're waiting for folks to join, please take the time to put your name on the agenda. Okay, I think we can start. Looks like we have a new member here, Michelle. How are you? Can you hear us?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, welcome. Would you give a quick introduction?
Sure. So, yeah, hi, I'm Michelle. I'm currently, one second. Yeah, I just graduated from computer science and engineering from NIT Surgical from India. And yeah, I'm currently working at Cisco and looking forward to contribute to the Open Telemetry CPP group with the Community Bridge program. That's it.
Yeah, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we'll have this week. Yeah, we'll have this weekly meeting, and I'm the maintainer here, and we have approvers Johannes and Max here. Also, like Tom is coming help. Here we got two interns from Amazon, Karen and Mark.
Right.
Riley, I have a question. Can we shift the time of this meeting to morning? Because
yeah.
I think Michelle and a couple other folks, they are interested in contributing to ETW exporter, and they are all in way different time zones. So what time is it right now for you, Michelle? It's probably late night.
Yeah, it's 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, sorry for that. I'll reach out to the, yeah. I think we talk about shifting the time, like every week we'll like depending on like whether it's the primary one or the secondary one. For primary, we'll pick this time. For the secondary meeting, we'll shift to the early morning, like the Pacific time, and then it'll be a little bit late night for your guys. At least that's better than 3 a.m.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Let me share my screen. Yeah, so last time I checked with Morgan, I think we got a conflict, but I'll check today to see if we can move that. So I have one topic I want to briefly update the SIG on the logging prototype side. So I have created one issue and currently it's assigned to Mark and Karen. And here goes the summary of what we think we can achieve. So the high level thinking is to have the prototype, like in the OpenTelemetry logging SIG, there are two work streams. One is more aligned with the long term. We want to explore whether we have some new logging API and build the spec and the SDK on top of that. Or there's another short-term work stream which is saying for languages that which already has the established or famous logging API, we should just go and enable that. And currently, the OpenTelemetry protocol already has a version of the spec for logs. So the goal here is we want to explore the logging story for C++ and use that to help to drive the spec and give feedback to the cross-language design community. So one thing we're thinking, similar like how Jaeger and Zipkin work, it gives people a local experience. They can see something visual as the data flows in, and it gives something better than just a console exporter. So for logs, I think AWS is interested in the Elasticsearch story. And in general, in the logging SIG, we're also seeing the ECS, which is the Elastic Common Schema, has a big influence on the current work stream. So here we want to explore having the logging API and having the exporter story sending data to Elasticsearch. So people who have the local ELK stack running, they should be able to see the logs and do some visualization. And there are some stretch goals. For example, we can explore how to build the OTLP exporter, but those are not the must-have thing. Just to try to capture what we want to do and give people some idea. So if you're interested or you think there's something that we should avoid or we need to focus on different things, please comment here and I'll try to answer them. Any questions? So for the current internship, so I've committed myself to spend like 1 to 2 hours a week with our 2 interns, and so we have scheduled the initial call, and I hope that can help them to ramp up. And if they need any help on the PR, so please try your best effort to give them comments, and I'll take the major work there to review and make sure they're heading towards the right direction.
Just, I have a question about the reviewing. I mean, maybe I will find some time to review PRs that come in there. And I just wonder, this runs under the label logging prototype, so it's not gonna be like something production ready, but it's supposed to be a prototype that comes out of the work. Okay.
Yeah, it is a prototype, and I think we should expect there will be breaking changes or some design changes as we make improvements on the spec. The current spec is also a draft, so there are a lot of floating targets.
Then I will review it with, if I get to do some reviews, I will review it with that in mind.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
And I've also seen some of the recent activity from Lalit. So once we have him joining the meeting, we can discuss more. So the recent OpenTelemetry spec had some changes, and like Johannes, last time I think when we look at the spec, like feature metrics, we've identified all the gaps for the tracing part. Now there are more changes coming, so I'll need to go through that again and probably file some issue. And I wonder how should we manage the current GitHub project?
I guess we should try to update as good as we can with at least the required changes that we need to do to be conformant to the spec. So if there's anything that we need to change, I think it would be great to have an issue that then gets assigned.
Yeah. So I'll do the issue part to my best knowledge. And for the project management, do you expect Jordi to help, or currently she might not be available?
This week she's on vacation, so I'm not sure yet in how far she will have time to help. I mean, otherwise I will take over the project management.
Okay.
That
Okay. Yeah, so for now, I think there should be like around 5 or 6 gaps in the tracing part, and all of them should be small.
Yeah.
I can do that. Just want to make sure I'm not duplicating the effort with what Jordi is doing. And the latest spec has a change on the span status. So it changed from like the original gRPC code to now only like 3 status. Either it's like unset, or we know it's a failure, or the customer can override that to a success if they believe they don't care about the underlying details. So I'll create that issue for tracking. And that's all the topics from my side. Any other topics? If not, then we're going to quickly look at the PR.
I have a quick question on code review policy. Yeah, what's the current code review policy for OpenTelemetry C++? Like from get a tool approval or?
Okay, so let me show you the link here. So this is the current policy.
Okay, I see.
And in general, I'm trying to follow that, but there are minor cases where we don't, like, it's hard for us to wait for tool approvals. I'll make some exception depending on whether the PR is trivial or it's a relatively big change. And normally I would wait for 1 day just to give people enough time to comment. So sometimes I've seen like people try to ping me, I got a PR and you approved, please go and merge that. I'll explain, like, in general, I want to keep 1 day. Unless some critical thing, that, for example, the intern is about to finish the internship and they only have 1 day left and they still have 2 PRs. In this way, I'll give exception. But yeah, but in general, that seems to be working.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and if you think this is something that we got to improve or something really doesn't make sense given the current status, I'm open for changes. And whatever thing we want to change, I'll need to keep this as a single source of truth. So if you think like you have a suggestion how to make this like easier for us at this stage, because we're not GA, so probably we can try to focus more on efficiency instead of trying to put more restrictions. I'm open to that.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? If not, then we can quickly look at the PRs. I think there shouldn't be a lot. So for this one, I think I got that from Lalit, and the change makes sense. I've already approved that. He got some code coverage issue where he mentioned it works on his local machine, but not here. I think in general, code coverage is not a showstopper. So I like, unless there's a different idea, I think it's ready to merge after we wait for a day.
I added some comments there.
Yeah.
Regarding the interface design. So I'm open for other opinions, like just some small like interface changes and getting it more in line with our like event interface that we already have, because I think those two should be symmetrical. Yeah,
good point. And for this one, Johannes, I think I see a valid point from Tom that if people make an accidental like release of the SharePoint, I wonder if there's a special case we can make. So no matter how people use the no-op span, they're not going to mess things up. For example, if they just call release, we wouldn't actually release the last reference count.
If they call release, they wouldn't release the last reference count, because the last this function returns a copy of the shared pointer. Yeah. And the last reference count will also always be the static variable. So the user should never be able with releasing the shared pointer to go like below the reference count of 1 here.
Yeah. So Tom, so would you clarify what is a concern? Like, is a concern about maintaining the reference count is just a performance, like, or you worry about like some dangling pointer?
I don't know whether it could happen. Like the user gets shared pointer. Could the user free that one more than the count it gets, right? For it gets one shared pointer, can it release for 2 times? Then it affects the global variable. Or
The user could not release one shared pointer 2 times. I mean, the user could always mess this up in a way. I mean, they can just get the raw pointer out of the shared pointer and call delete on it. So there's always ways for the user
okay.
to mess this up. But I think basically when we initialize this in the static variable, we have a shared count of 1. And as soon as we return a shared pointer out to the user, the shared count gets incremented to 2 because we copy the shared pointer when we return. And then when the user kind of releases the shared pointer, the reference count gets decremented to 1 again. And once the shared pointer is released, the user, if he doesn't do anything evil, shouldn't have any hold on this pointer anymore. But I'm also open to any kind of alternative suggestions there.
Okay, yeah, I think I will do some offline experiment today and see, yeah, if the global and the static variable holds 1 reference, I think that's fine. Previously, I thought the reference just to be returned, so that may be risk. Yeah, if the static variable always holds 1 reference, I think that should be okay.
Yep. It's a function static variable that always should have a reference 1, and I think this is a really important performance improvement for us, because I mean in the benchmark it improves like this noob span creation, it's 3 times as fast.
Wow.
And that basically improves the performance for customers who just like want to disable OpenTelemetry and don't have any like spans created at all. I think it's an important use case that we have just a very minimal overhead in that case.
Okay. Makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, so just some quick idea about performance optimization. So besides the no-op span in OpenTelemetry.net, people also took the special case about samplers. So if you look at the tracing part, for example, if we take a look at the always on sampler and always off, they're returning the result. But this function is actually not called if you use the always on, always off sampler. Instead, the SDK is taking extra logic to hardware that. So the code will be, if it is always on sampler, this one is taking extra code path. It is not calling the always on sampler, just for extreme performance optimization. And we've seen a lot of optimization. The reason here is once you create the tracer provider, the sampler has to be assigned upon creation. And after that, you cannot change the sampler. So during creation, we're saying, oh, we're using always on sampler. Let's just go and call the processor directly. We don't go through any like virtual function call into a sampler and realize, oh, the sampler is returning true. Like, this is something we can potentially explore in the OpenTelemetry C++ as well, as it saves 2 extra virtual function calls.
Yes, that makes sense, because I mean the sampler basically being a virtual function call, that's nothing that a compiler can optimize. So we will always have this function call in there. So I can see that this would also benefit us on C++ side. Yeah.
So if this is valuable, I can create one issue. I think it's a low priority thing, but these are all like, I think C#, Java, and C++, these are the languages people want to get some higher performance, even if they have to do some special case optimization.
We should definitely take this into account, because that's also a low-hanging fruit. I mean, that's not much work to implement that.
Yeah. Yes.
So that looks
And I'm curious that whether the compiler or like for C++ can do this devirtualization work, or
If
is it
runtime behavior, then it's hard unless you do some like AI-based learning, like
but
runtime.
the compiler knows from the core side it is the type, right? That always on sampler, so it can do the.
It is hard. I think the logic of calling the sampler is in one compilation unit, or they probably they even belong to different modules. Like the one module is dynamic loading library, another is the actual application for the customer, and the customer would specify the sampler. So
I see.
underlying library has no idea except for the runtime, and unless there's a runtime way of doing rigid, like generate the code on the fly, there's no such way. Or the CPU can learn from that, but I think it's probably too far away.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, going back to the GitHub issues, I've seen based on the last conversation, I see Johannes, you've updated this PR.
Yes.
You think it's ready to merge, right?
It should be ready to merge.
Okay.
I mean, I have this. I'm not. Sometimes I don't really know how this code coverage thing works, because also my 2 PRs, I get code coverage errors for code that I didn't even touch.
Yeah.
Some of the metrics part. So I'm not sure if there's some side effect or if the codecov.io thing.
It is not stable.
Yeah.
If you close the PR and rerun that, it would give you a different result, even if there's no change. So we've noticed that not just for this project, but also for the OpenTelemetry.net.
Yeah. Then I wonder if we make this whether we should make this just an optional condition and not mark the PRs as failed just because of code coverage failures. Yeah. I can look into the GitHub Actions whether how we can configure that just runs kind of.
Yeah, it is already an optional thing, and so far I've never blocked a PR because of the code coverage, but in general we look at the code coverage as an input. So if people just add a lot of code without having proper test, we'll see if they're willing to add that. But so far we never enforced that.
Yeah, I just think it would be a visual help for us if even for PRs where the code coverage fails, that we get a green check mark and not the red X. It would just, I think, maybe help to see which PRs are ready for merge actually, because when you just see the X, you don't know, is it the code coverage or is it something else? So I can look into that and see to make, ignore the basically outcome of the code coverage for this.
Does the current code coverage rule requires that for every new code or function we added, it should be tested? Or?
No, the code coverage currently works in 2 ways. One is it has a bar. So for example, it mandates you have to have at least code coverage 75%. And if you're below that bar, you will get some warning or error. And another rule is based on the diff. So if you're adding something that changed the code coverage, even if the final result might be higher, but a previously covered line of code with your change is not covered, then it is considered as a problem.
Okay.
And that added some headache for the .NET project. For example, we realized, oh, we got to refactor something. So for example, we have function A that we realize is not good enough. And because of the dependency, we decided, okay, let's build a function B and make that a better version and eventually migrate all the features towards B and then remove A. But the moment we start to migrate features to B, you start to get complaint from the coverage, say, hey, some original lines in function A now is not covered. And we'll rely on the maintainer to make the right judgment, whether we want to just make just to please the code coverage or we want to do the actual value here.
Okay.
Okay, and for all the other pending PRs, I assume there's no intention anyone here to work on them, and I'll take a stab. And for some of the small PR documentation, I noticed there are some comments.
Bradley,
Sorry?
As you go down through the list for the HTTP client API PR,
Yeah.
my recommendation would be to add Apache license to copyright Microsoft, copyright OpenTelemetry authors, because it is kind of based off the original code we have elsewhere. And my understanding, I already sorted out with our legal team that this other code is Apache license too. So I'm gonna reset my feedback for the changes requested, assuming that Lalit refreshes it. There are some other functional comments in there, like quite a number of refactoring suggestions.
Yeah.
But maybe like two approaches. Either he resolves the refactoring suggestions but adds the copyright, or fully resets it and does the complete rewrite from scratch. So whatever you guys think. My personal recommendation would be just to add the copyrights, like respect the prior art copyright. And it is a compatible license. It is Apache license.
I do have some questions. So I haven't seen such practice a lot in the other repo. So I'll probably.
It's been discussed in the main OpenTelemetry repo. And what is recommended right now is for anything that is same license, we highlight the name of a company, but not the name of an individual. So we avoid promoting individuals because anybody can, contribute and say that this is their code, right?
Yeah. Would you point me to that link or like?
Sure, I can send you that discussion. Like I was on that discussion. And I asked this question originally, what if we have incompatible license? But since then we resolved this, and whatever contribution is here, it is now under compatible license.
Yeah.
It's the same license.
Yeah, so if we have a general guidance from the OpenTelemetry community.
Yeah, I'll add it in a chat window in a moment. Just let's continue on that.
Because I just want to add something here. I just know from the OpenTelemetry Go project, they actually rejected commits that had a copyright notice that were not the OpenTelemetry authors, but something else. So maybe there are some different guidelines there in the meantime, but I just remember this one case.
Yeah, I can show you the interpretation of. We had this discussed like 2 weeks ago. Just a moment, I have too many notifications.
And in OpenTelemetry.net, we're doing the same. So we enforce all the files to have the copyright to OpenTelemetry authors, and that's part of the CI. If you don't have that, then we'll fail your CI.
Yeah, because I think the caveat is here when the copyright is somebody else, then like we cannot change the license without approval from those other people who holds copyright. So if everything is copyright OpenTelemetry authors, it's easy to just do changes on the licensing of the whole project. But I think if the copyright is holder for some parts is somebody else, then that cannot be that easily done.
Yeah, good point. I'll put a link from OpenTelemetry.net. This is what we require. So we do the exact like byte to byte mapping. If you don't have the exact words like OpenTelemetry authors, you're going to fail the CI.
Let me find that. I'll send you guys the link. It was like how to handle copyright, how to handle license. Just a minute.
Yeah, so in this field in general, I want to be careful and take the minimum dependency. Like if I'm going to write some code, I'd rather rewrite that from scratch instead of taking some like existing things from what I have done for Microsoft. In OpenTelemetry, I have done that many times.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it so.
Yeah, so cool. So Max, please put the link here, and I want to see where the discussion is
I
heading.
think this is the link. There were two related discussions, so let me check if that's the one. So that's one. There was another one. Just a moment.
And you can put that in the notes
Yeah,
here.
I'll put it in the document. Yes.
Okay, I'll follow up on this.
So my understanding was that the issue is if we are trying to borrow incompatible license, but if we borrow compatible license, and right now it is Apache license 2, we have to quote the original author and add copyright OpenTelemetry authors as well. So it's both records are there. And from my end, I discussed with our legal to relicense our code that we already have, that we're kind of separate track releasing soon. And our legal agreed that we can license our code as Apache. And the sole reason why I did this is if we need to borrow, we can always borrow easily, both ways.
Okay.
One thing that maybe we might keep in mind here, maybe that is where Max referring is to, I think we have to distinguish between adding code as like third-party code or adding code directly to the OpenTelemetry CPP project.
Yes.
I think when we add code as third-party code, I mean, the copyright doesn't really matter, but the license is important, and as long as we are we're fine. But when we add the code directly as OpenTelemetry C++ code as part of the project, then we have to be careful about the copyright.
So pretty much what I'm trying to personally follow is whatever new code that we are designing based on OpenTelemetry spec, I would always place the OpenTelemetry author's copyright on it. But if we need to borrow something that existed before from the previous path, that's where we need to quote the original authors and respect their original version. I will add both links to that document because there was a thread about this. Let me find it. Just like I have a few thousand threads in my notifications list.
Okay, cool. I think we got all the topics covered. And for the remaining issues, my assumption is like you guys are not going to work on them. I'll do a cleanup, and potentially we can merge some of the simple PRs. But for the complex one that has been stuck there, probably we need to close that.
Yeah, I mean, I might take over the forking PR, like the forking for spam processors and exporters at some point. So I will assign that to me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not going to touch any issue that you guys assign to yourself, or at least you put your own name in that PR. I'll do the check before I close or clean up them.
My feedback on forking was that if we have some sort of common platform abstraction where we can extract the fork syspool in there, that'd be awesome. Because then we have generic code, which doesn't care about forking. And then there's a pluggable piece, which is unique to POSIX operating systems.
Yes, I agree. I saw your comments on that, Max, and I agree that the user should not worry about using a fork-aware batch processor or a non-fork-aware batch processor that should work under the hood.
Okay, cool. I think we got all the topics covered. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.
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 Bye, guys.